In a world where people love music and people love film, who will connect the two? Our special guest, Craig Brandwein, has and continues to do so. Let's learn more about this process and have a little fun along the way. You're listening to Music Student 101.
Welcome back to Music Student 101, everybody.
Welcome.
How are you today, Matt?
I am good, Jeremy. How are you?
I'm extra stoked today because we have a special guest with us.
We do.
I'm extra happy about that. Let me tell you a little story. It's
Okay.
already story time. We're into the episode 10 seconds and it's already story time. Back in February of 2017, I sent out about 50 or so emails to different local universities and
I
adjunct
recall
professors.
this. Yes.
And I got, I think, about 2 responses back.
Yes.
One of them was Craig Brandwein.
Yes,
From the
indeed.
University of Alabama at Birmingham, and he seemed very enthused about the idea of what we're doing. This is 2 years ago. This is when we first started doing this podcast.
Back in the dark ages.
Welcome, Craig.
Welcome,
Thank
Craig.
you. Thanks for having me here.
Professor Craig Brandwein, currently teaching at the University of Alabama at Birmingham.
And doing an outstanding job at it, too.
That's our alma maters, isn't it,
Yes,
Matt?
it is, yeah.
Let's see here. Oh, and then I think that was the first time I actually heard from you. And then about a year later, there was a cool thing going on at UAB. Well, it seems like there was an Israeli man restoring violins from the Holocaust, if memory serves.
Yeah, Violins of Hope.
Violins
Yeah.
of Hope, yes. Was it Amon Weinstein?
Amon Weinstein, and Dr. Panion wrote a piece that was used on that violin. The violin was used to play that piece, and we had a huge concert, and it was incredible.
Yeah. So when the actual musicians were choosing the violins that they wanted to play with, I was with Alabama Public Television, and that's when I officially met you.
That's right. I was on stage at ASL.
Yep. And I just knew I liked this guy. Great attitude, enthusiastic, passionate. I could just tell, just by hanging out for those half an hour or so.
I saw you with a bag and a mixer. I said, it's got to be cool.
Yeah. My Ghostbuster suit, as I call it.
Probably didn't yet even know how small a town this is because Jeremy and I have then been friends for
More than
decades.
a decade now.
Yeah, going on a couple of decades at least. And
since 2000.
yeah, and of
At
course,
least.
I'm on the adjunct faculty at UAB as well, so...
Yeah, I wrote to you too. Craig wrote me back, but you never wrote me back, Matt. But anyway, I'm sorry.
It is okay. Where were we going with that?
I'm just kind of giving my little intro to Craig, and we call this M-Town, Birmingham M-Town. We're going to walk around and get to know all the musicians in this little...
And there's quite
Yeah.
a few of them. I mean, the
And
talent is
top
overwhelming.
notch.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here, and it's incredible to be teaching at University of Alabama at Birmingham in music technology and what I do.
It is one of the best kept secrets.
Yeah.
This whole city really is
Yeah.
one of the best kept secrets ever. There's so much good stuff here. Good music, good food.
A lot of live venues, which is you don't find that in a lot of towns anymore.
Right, yeah.
So let's talk about music. Let's talk about...
Let's talk about Craig.
Let's talk about Craig.
First of all. So Craig, to the extent that we haven't covered this already, tell us where you are now. Tell us about yourself, your musical career. How has it progressed up to this point?
Well, originally I'm from New York. I wasn't born in Alabama. You probably could tell. And then I moved down to Raleigh, North Carolina in 2004 and started a piano business, selling pianos. I was doing some of that in New York as well while working on the music. I'm kind of digressing here. And then ended up teaching at a facility called Living Arts College for about 12 years and built the audio program there and studios, and it became a really nice program. And then my wife actually found the ad for Birmingham and I said, I'll apply, So I didn't have anything. I just applied like anything else, and I was pretty shocked when I got a call for a Skype interview, and then a subsequent interview to be on campus, and I was like, this is too good to be true. Forget it. Then I go and look at everybody's dossier of what they are and who they are, and I'm like, there's no way. But apparently, they saw something else. So that was good. I was happy about that. But I started with, the typical rock band. Back in, I played, I started playing music in second grade. My grandfather plays, my father played, my father-in-law played. I mean, my uncles, it was just in the blood. Mm-hmm. So it was just destined that I would just be a musician. So where I would go with it, we didn't know. So started on accordion. That was my introduction to keyboard.
Wow, that's a new one.
Yeah, well, second grade, Grandpa played accordion, so we got lessons for free, so that was good. And he also played violin and upright bass. He was a phenomenal musician as well. So he taught me a lot from the beginnings of that. And I was always reading, always on theory. There was never a time that I didn't read until I got a little older, and then I was able to catch things by ear and realized, I could do this too. Yeah. But it was more important for me to make sure that I can read what's on the page so I can then take it off the page and make it my own.
Sure.
So I was thankful for that. A lot of guys, especially guitar players, are great guitar players, but they don't read. They're losing some of that they can actually pull from to expand their playing. Yeah. So, I was fortunate with that.
So standard notation from an early age?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, bass clef and treble clef, it's because in school you learn clarinet, you got treble clef, you look at bass clef and you're like, oh my God, what is this?
Right, and we have to beat that out of them, metaphorically speaking, right?
So, to a degree.
Well, yeah, look, I'll give you if you're not great on alto or tenor clef, but bass and treble, it doesn't matter what instrument you play.
Exactly.
Bass and treble, you have to know how to read that.
Then in grade school, I switched to clarinet and sax. Huh. So I had a little bit of that experience. I minored in clarinet in college, and I was able to use the Closet book for both guitar and clarinet, which was phenomenal. Nice. It was really cool. So I got my chops built up in classical guitar as well in college and my master's. So in that, I was always very interested in composition. I was always writing songs. I mean, I'm sure they were terrible because you start writing songs. They're all terrible.
Yes.
And we had the band, several of them. And, of course, we had original material. We had covers. We played. We paid to play. We played at 3 o'clock in the morning for 3 people and the bartender. We played in some very big clubs, and we had a little record deal that they were pushing us. So it wasn't terrible, but just never exploded the way that we obviously anticipated that it was, wanted it to, right?
Right.
But we had a lot of fun and learned a lot, doing a lot of the gigs like that and small little road trips here and there. One of the things that I was always intrigued about was television music because there was just so much of an abundance of it. This is going back in the 80s even. Mm-hmm. So I was working at A&R Recording Studio with Major Little and Chaz Clifton. It's Phil Ramone's place.
Oh.
Yeah. And Major had a client or a friend named, and his name is Valentine or Valentino. They were a library company. And it was needle drop. It was like a vinyl record. And they said, if you give us some songs, pieces of music, we'll put it on our record and then we'll send it out. And if they drop the needle, you'll get a couple of dollars in the royalties. Very similar to what they're doing today with music supervision.
Sure.
So I thought that was, okay, what do we have to do? And, we got all of this equipment and everything from the band. And so they said, let's try it. So we came up with a couple of cues, a couple of pieces. They really liked it. We submitted it after we went to A&R and recorded it. Mm. We submitted it. They called us back and said, this is nice, but we changed the format. Mm-hmm. So here I am with an album's worth of music that we probably couldn't do anything with. Major's laughing. He's like, well, what are you going to do? I said, all right, what are you going to do? So we started shopping it around and just blindly, like, hey, does anybody want this?
Yeah.
So I sent it to my drummer's girlfriend. Never forget this. Found an ad in the New York Times.
Oh, nice.
And the ad was, don't write your own music, let Signature Sound do it for you. Right? So she said to me, maybe this guy would want some of that stuff you wrote. Uh-huh. So I'm like, why not?
Why not?
So I sent him the cassette. And I got a phone call back. I was amazed. And his phone call was exactly like this. It says, hey, we really like this production. but we don't do this kind of music. But we do music for the soap operas for New York. Are you interested in writing for that? And he couldn't even finish the sentence before I said yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because there was no reason not to say yes for this.
The answer
no
is always yes.
Yeah, it's just yes until oh my God, why did I say yes?
Yeah.
So we did a demo of a cue for Guiding Light.
Guiding Light.
Guiding Light. It was Guiding Light, Another World, and As the World Turns. So they were owned by Procter
Big
& Gamble.
stuff, yeah.
Yeah, it was all national, soap opera. Procter & Gamble was the owner. So the deal was, Craig, you write the music, you produce the music, you split the writer's rights with Elliot, who is the owner of Signature.
Right, yeah.
And Procter & Gamble keeps the publishing. So I'm
Okay.
like, okay, no money up front, no guarantees of anything. Mm-hmm. So I get home, I set up my gear, and we're all excited. And we write up these cues, and I got a couple of friends of mine who was going to get BMI, and we start doing this. We ended up airing the demo that we sent in. He goes, "This is really good. We like this. Give me some more. Da 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 da. You got it. Fine."
They aired the demo.
They aired the
on their
demo
show.
on Guiding Light. It was the first piece. My first royalty check from BMI. $5.91, which I framed, and it's in my office. I refuse to cash it.
You will always remember that number.
591. I even play that sometimes. So, what? Boring story. Sorry.
Not at all.
So having that background with the writing the cues was very interesting because there was no post production. Like now, like you see a film, you get the cue, you get the shot, and you write to it. You feel it, right? This was writing blind. This was off a shopping list. So, okay, we need 3 minutes of pensive music, 3 minutes of suspense music, 3 minutes of this.
Wow.
And then we broke it up. What I came up with the idea is I said, what if I gave them versions of the cue?
Like Suspense 1, Suspense 2.
Right, and then Suspense 1 would have just like the, maybe the ambiotic sound and a little percussion. Suspense 2 would have that plus the strings.
Right.
So they were able to now take the same theme and kind of extrapolate and put it across.
Yeah.
And basically get more mileage out of the cue.
Sure, yeah.
So I ended up with about 700 cues in their library over the course of a few years. And they were used quite a bit. And, certainly the checks came, and sometimes they were big, and not big, but they were nice size, good surprise money. And then they were really small at sometimes. But it was so funny because the other day we just got our distribution from BMI, and I look on it, and on the bottom for international from Bulgaria, Guiding Light. That
It's huge in Bulgaria.
We're killing them in Bulgaria. But apparently what happened is they must have licensed the show over there or something happened. They used the music and there's the royalty. So it doesn't hurt, So it was interesting to see that like from a long, long time ago. It's like, what, over 30 years, I suppose.
Yeah, wow.
So that's never dies, right? So what I had gotten interested with the TV, then I was able to tell people, hey, this is what I'm doing. Now, I wasn't the only one doing it. It's not a glamorous thing. You're in your own studio. You're throwing stuff against the wall. If they like it, they use. I'm sure they used a lot. I'm sure they didn't use as much as I sent them. That kind. I don't even remember what they did. So I started pitching myself out to other companies saying, hey, I'm doing this. Could I, do you need any help with this? Do you need any, and this was before email, before the internet. This was like sending me a cassette, literally.
And for you younger listeners, a cassette is some magnetic tape on a reel that would go past a needle.
From one
just
school to
kidding.
the next.
Yeah, but I mean, cassettes are coming back now, right? So
Maybe so, yeah.
I saw hear this.
But just after vinyl?
Right? So anyway, by sending these things out, I got some bites, some nibbles on different things. I did something for HBO, which is home box office at the time. I was a guy that was a magician, lowered himself into the Hudson River in a safe, and he came out. And I did the music for that and the sound design. So they gave me a whole 2 minutes of just safes being manufactured. And this was the name of the piece was Laurice. I'll never forget this name. Laurice was a magician, escape artist. And they gave me this thing. It was from Astoria, Queens. They went into a safe factory and they just shot this montage of safes.
Safes being made.
Spinning what are the spindles or the combination things.
Yeah.
And the doors slamming. And they go, here, could you put sound to this? And I'm like, Okay.
You want me to score safes being constructed.
Okay. So I came up with this really cool, like, sort of rhythmical track with an R8 drum machine.
Sure,
R8.
yeah.
And I had all that programmed in there with the Doom Toms. Love the Doom Toms. And I had that playing. I was like, now where can I get the sounds? Because this was before, downloading samples.
Sample cell or
So I
anything
had a
like that,
filing
yeah.
cabinet in my studio, and I slammed the drawer and I recorded that. And then I took a vibra slap when I spun the dial, that kind of thing.
No way.
And I took a whole box of nails and I dumped them on the cement floor when the sparks came up, and I used that. Then I had a DSM-1 sample. I'll never forget this from Korg. I actually was able to MIDI everywhere I wanted the sound to go. I just hit a key, just to kind of.
I
put
remember
a
the
marker.
DSM-1 where you could
Right?
map those samples
Yes,
onto the.
and then I mapped them to the notes. So every time the note came up, boom, it hit, and I was able to go in and edit the sample a little bit. Not so much what we could do today, of course,
Yeah.
but editing, to the point, get the stuff out. But what was interesting is that I never had a digital audio workstation at my house until it had to be in 2000. I
Wow.
always used analog and MIDI. And I did it with a Studio Opcode 2. I striped one side of a VCR, and I played that back so I have song syncs, song pointer position in the Mac Plus, or Mac 2. I'm sorry, not had a
Mac
Mac
2.
Mac SE. That's what I had.
Okay.
Yeah. Mac SE with a 20 megabyte hard drive. How could you get even better than
At
that?
20 megabytes. Yeah.
20 megabytes. I was
Twi-
king.
I mean, how do you
And two
even fill up
floppies.
20
And
megabytes?
Forget it. So I'm sitting there and I'm putting this in, and it's locking up, and I'm laying it back to the video, and then I give the guy comes to pick up the stuff, and he's amazed that we actually got this done, and he loved it. It went on the air, and there you go.
Wow.
So it brought me to another couple of things in life in terms of just doing gigs.
Yeah.
And it was fun because you had to really experiment. There was no way there was no book. I
Yeah.
mean, you bought a sampler, you had the manual, big deal. But there was no book to tell you how to do these things. You had to make
Oh.
them up as you go along.
Yeah. Back before, people today, they, there are all sorts of libraries of samples on the internet and things. You just find them and working in DAWs like Pro Tools or something, it's so easy.
Well, yeah. I mean, still look. You
back
still
then there
need
was
to
so
know-
much. You had to
Right.
have an idea of what you wanted to hear.
Well, we had to be more innovative back then. I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
We weren't certainly not inventing anything. Obviously,
Yeah.
this has all been done long before us. I mean,
Sure.
with movies and radio and stuff. But I think what we had to do is we had to take the new software that we were just being introduced to and apply it to use our knowledge of the analog world, applying it to the digital technology. And I think we actually had a little bit of a one-up on a lot of people starting out today because we already knew the engineering aspect of it. We were able to work on a Neve or an SSL and record on 24-track, mix it down with the band and do the vocals and all this other stuff and overdub. So we kind of knew that workflow. All we needed to do is transfer it digitally because then we just had to learn the digital aspect of it, like the architecture of the software of Pro Tools. How do we manipulate? Where do we put the sends and how do we send an auxiliary input? This kind of thing. Where on a board in front of us, it was like second nature. We just did it. So I think we had that idea, and that's what it got us to go faster.
Sure, yeah.
I really feel for people starting out learning both of those worlds today. And I know with my students, I try to compartmentalize and say, look, this is virtual. The only reason this is here is because these things were real back in the day.
They used to be a real plug.
Yeah,
they used to be a real. There was a thing called a MIDI cable, right?
Just plug in.
Yes.
Yeah, and I mean plug. There used to be wires
patch.
running behind this.
There was a patch.
Yeah,
it
was
and-
literally a patch.
Well, I tell you, one of the best programs I love to use, not entirely 100%, but teach with is Reason. Because you hit the tab key, flips it back, and you could show the
love
signal
that.
flow. And it is a breeze because it really makes you understand.
Yeah.
And then you could physically, they could physically grab a cable and plug it in, and then if it doesn't fit, it doesn't go in, so they know it's wrong. So
Yeah.
I
Can't
just
plug
really
stereo into mono, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Right. But they try hard, and that's what I appreciate from them. But it's a difficult learning curve. It really is.
Yeah, I've had that experience with some students too, where it just feels like it's all so digital. it's hard to get them to, even when you explain it, it's hard to get them to have a tactile feel for the behind the scenes workings.
Well, they don't have the experience of hearing it or being part of it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, or for having something not going into the right place and not getting what you want because of that.
Right.
You know.
Right. And you know, here's the other funny thing is that and I'm sure Matt, you know, when we were kids and we had a reverb unit. We were king, right? We had a reverb unit.
Oh
and
my gosh!
Let me tell you, we were going to use that reverb unit
on
when
everything.
Exactly.
And not in the lowest setting either.
No, we'd have made our money's worth out of that. So I'm trying to everybody say less is more. Just because you can put 14 reverbs on it, you'll have every track and they insert reverb. Say no, you need to sidechain that. Don't insert that.
And not a little reverb either. Yeah. We're talking cathedral hall.
Yeah, it was
preset.
Great.
Yeah, just huge.
It was funny, but yeah, you know, we had a lot of good experience with that. But in the compositional aspect, I got into the MIDI stuff because as a composer, back in the day, we really couldn't use that 100% because it was really raw and it was very difficult to articulate. There wasn't enough samples in the velocity. I mean, we can go on and talk about the evolution of that, but the fact is that on the onset, I can write for, just for argument's sake, a flute and a clarinet. Yeah. And I can almost hear what it would sound like, and I might want to change the flute to an oboe.
Sure.
And I could do that with the touch of a button. I wouldn't get the performance that I want, but I would get the timbres. So if I printed it out in Encore, which I was using Mastertrax Pro at the time, and its brother Encore from Passport.
I remember
Great
Encore.
piece of software. I love it. I would be able to print that out and have real people play it.
Which was always the end goal.
Which was the end goal. But then the industry gets wind of these things, and it's like, oh, you don't need real people. You could do it this way. And then the budgets kind of shrink, and then the pressure goes on.
And it's so not the thing either. It's so not a replacement for a living, breathing human.
I am the first one to say it's a tool, and it's a great tool, but it's not a replacement. And at any point in time for traditional instruments, get and use live people.
Absolutely.
In addition to the stuff that you're doing, because there's a lot of cool stuff out there that cannot be, you know, created by a trumpet or a clarinet.
Right, yeah.
And that's what this is for, like Omnisphere and Giant, all these things that are really just innovative sounds that are part of the scope of the soundtrack these days. And clients, and I should say clients, producers, directors are expecting that to be part of the score now, no longer sound effects. It's now part of your...
Yeah, of what you're
it's
doing.
It's written in, you know.
So as a composer, what would you just say are some of your influences? Are there composers that you particularly feel like inspired you in a particular way?
Be it film composers or any
or any composer.
Any music.
Or any music.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, of course, I'm a big Broadway nut. I love Broadway. When I say Broadway, I love the British invasion. The Les Mis, the Phantoms, the bigger shows. I'm not a super fan of the old American musical because it's just that style doesn't really do it for me much. There are some really amazing songs written, but the time for those shows were a different time in our life, in our country, and they needed to be what they were at that time.
Right.
Coming now, we don't really kind of get it, you know.
Yeah.
But the newest shows out, I feel that there's a huge amount of innovation, and there's a little bit more. How do we say that? There's a little bit more push in the theater, a little bit more stretch. Come on, help me, man.
Kind of pushing the envelope a little. Yeah,
pushing the envelope, being a little bit more innovative, daring. Thank you. Yes. So, and I think that's being welcomed to a degree. Certainly not by the theater buffs of the old times.
Right.
But, there's a lot of new people there. When I say new, I mean even 15, 20 years ago, like Frank Wildhorn, who's just a phenomenal composer. Yet he has this commerciality of the melodic line that just sits with you. Mm-hmm. It's sort of like an American Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Yeah.
And certainly Michel Schoenberg, forget it, from Les Mis. I mean, you can listen to that score all day long. And I think that there's the moving of that and the counter melodies. It's just this language that works. So sitting at a piano, my brain goes to obviously the motif and then developing from the motif with less is more, and using that motif to stretch as much as I can, using our typical theory, exposition stuff. And,
Right, engage the theory brain.
Diminutions and stuff. But it kind of focuses in that area, and I look at a set theory that I usually use, which is the hexachord. I know you don't want to get into that.
Actually, we talked about the
that was our last
hexachord
episode.
very
Did you?
recently.
Wow.
So let's get into it.
So I got 6 notes. Anybody want them, right? And I create and this is going, and I can tell you something, and this is why education to me is so important, and I'm so really feel blessed that I could teach it. Because in my master's in 1987, Howard Rovix was my mentor, very fine composer and great piano player, Manhattan School of Music. I was C.W. Post, where he was teaching there. And he taught me how to, my first assignment was he was write me 32 bars. So I did. And then he took a pencil and he crossed out 31. Not bar 31, but 31 bars.
31 of the...
And he looked at the first bar and he goes, "You see what you got here?" He goes, "You got your whole piece right here." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "You have 31 other pieces of music that you can do." And he goes, "Because nothing's meaning anything." He goes, "You gave me 32 bars, but now let's connect them."
Yeah.
So he goes, "These are great ideas." And then what he did was he showed me how to use those as anchors. And then setting up this theory of the primary and secondary triads, and then the Verburn clusters, using those across the board. You don't have the keyboard or the orchestra, however you want to do it. But I just found it to be so... like the less amount that I'm using, I have more to play with.
Yeah.
And there's more consistency in it. So that's really how I've since 1987, I have not composed any different.
Yeah. I had
just a lot of it. You know,
I had a very similar experience actually with Marvin Johnson at the University of Alabama. It was almost the same thing. It's like, write me a solo violin piece, 1 page. And I did, and I brought it to him. And he ignored all of it. He took the first measure, which had 4 notes in it, and said, "Well, let's talk about these 4 notes." And from those 4 notes, created a tone row, which then meant a matrix. And then it's like, now let's start talking about So talking about just because I was doing probably very similar to what you were doing. I was kind of writing, and it was kind of like it was idea.
I think we wanted to make sure that we knew that he knew that we knew something like that. But it was amazing when he broke it down. And I'm like, man, this is incredible. So I really got into like just doing that. And now I could do it. I could sit on a train and do it and hear it and play it and maybe be a half step off once in a while, but get pretty close to what I want.
And that's a testament to good ear training.
Well, we all have to go through that.
Do not skip the ear training episodes out there.
They love to hear me squirm.
They do. We can cut this.
Go ahead. Either way.
I give Jeremy ear training exercises during our ear training episodes, and it is semi legit. He's semi actually there having to dictate.
Yeah, I'm doing it actually, like I did back in the day.
Yep,
it's a trip, man.
It is a trip.
And the people write in, they're like, "Oh, I love how you guys are so real about it," and Jeremy gets upset about it and everything.
Like, that's not an act.
It's not an act.
He's genuinely frustrated and sick of doing dictations.
I'll bleak out the cuss words, but either way. Before we move on, do you have any other influences you'd like to share?
Just to throw out 1 or 2 more names, Dvorak is one of my favorite composers.
Oh, of course.
And his linear, I like more melodicism than minimal or contrapuntal. You know what I'm saying? I just like the melodic line.
Yeah, Dvorak. I don't know if it was a Czech thing or if it was because he came to America thing with the whole New World Symphony, but he has a melodicism. That I think his monophony is more important than his homophony.
And of course, Debussy, I love for the fullness of things. There's so many brilliant parts of everybody that you can sink your teeth into.
Yeah.
I try not to copy. I try to just get influenced,
like sort of absorb.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing, and because I find myself when I find somebody new that I really really love, and I'll get a little obsessed. I find myself copying, and I'll sit there and go, "That this is just imitation." And
it's
I'll
funny
have
you should say that because I got to tell you, my daughter is very much into musical theater. She's musical theater major. She was in a bunch of shows. she introduced me to Jason Robert Brown's music. And at first, I was like, no. I just didn't understand it. I'm like, how many words can you fit in one measure on over 3 notes? I said, it doesn't make any sense. It's like these poor singers, how are they going to sing? And then I got a chance to watch the last 5 years and fell in love with the whole thing and realized how intricate and genius he is. And I'm like, okay, I need to just stop talking here and analyze this. And then I became a fan of his because I realized what he is doing. And musically, it was just, I mean, almost was Bach-like. If you, last 5 years had a lot of the cello in there. It was like a Jesu Joy kind of thing.
Yeah.
But the way that he brought it out with the lyrics and the songs, and I started to now separate, as I'm writing, I'm starting to separate that a little bit rather than being like harmonic chord, playing a melody note, harmonic chord, playing a melody note, as you would sketch out an idea, and getting more polyphonic inside with leading, voice leadings and very brilliant stuff. So it actually influenced me that way.
Awesome.
On the contemporary.
Awesome.
Any other influences you want to name? Or that's kind of the classical. You want to talk a little bit about your pop or rock music influences?
Well, of course, Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't go without saying that. I do like a lot. Believe it or not, when I was growing up, I was a very big fan of Barry Manilow and his arrangements, and I thought he was brilliant.
Barry Manilow is a good composer.
Yep.
I will stand up and defend Barry Manilow.
Yeah.
I really will.
I just liked everything about him and his personality, his showmanship, and the fact that he can get up on the stage, play piano, and sing. And I grew up on weddings and bar mitzvahs and put myself through college with that. So we played every weekend, and we were doing all the top tunes and all of that. So there's a lot of big influence that came from pop with me. It was before rock and roll. But the actual contemporary music, I always loved country music. And I had the opportunity to work with some very A-list country artists, Lynn Anderson being one of them. And we put her last record out. Unfortunately, she passed away 6 weeks after we put the record out.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's because we were in the business too, and we have the label Center Sound Records, and we were trying to do some things with that. And we had an opportunity. I worked with her on a couple of projects, and we became really good friends. And I worked on her last record with her to get it out there, and we got it distributed through from our label through New Day Distribution, which is a very big Christian label in Hendersonville, Tennessee, right near Nashville. And it was a gospel album she put out, so it was really well done. And Bill Vorndick produced it with Bruce Dees. It was great names on the record, and unfortunately she died. But but I got to work. Country is something that I still do a lot of.
Contemporary country, old school country?
A mixture. I really like the old country, and I have a client that actually loves doing old country songs. He calls me up. We do like 4 songs a year. We go to Nashville. I bring up the tracks. He sings them. We do overdubs. I'm on his 4th record now.
Oh, nice.
And he loves when I give him the karaoke version of it, so he sings for the old age homes and stuff. And then we do some of the contemporary stuff, but I don't do I have never worked with anybody like a Carrie Underwood or Jason Aldean in that genre. It's always been sort of a little bit of a older crew, kind of with Lynn Anderson kind of thing, and it's swamp stuff. I call it, just like real good. Not that the new stuff's not good. It's good, but more traditional,
more of that
instrumental
old school
rather than the box.
Very good. Shall we move on?
Yes.
So, in terms of your composition style, or is there a style to speak of? Because, for example, I know Danny Elfman. When I hear Danny Elfman, I know there's probably a Tim Burton movie involved. So, and then John Williams, Alan Silvestri.
Mm-hmm. Silvestri, yeah.
I know his music pretty well, but I also know that he tends to work with the same director a lot. So I wonder if it hinders you to have a specific style as a composer for film, not hinders, but limits you.
Kind of pigeonholes you?
Pigeonholes you, yeah.
So there's 2 ways to look at that. Going back to Barry Manilow, people would say, why don't you try something else? You're always modulating. You're always doing this. Yeah, well, that's what they like, and that's what they expect, so that's what I'm going to be doing.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, like with Howard Shore or Danny Elfman, they've got a specific style that some of these producers or these big studios gravitate to. And they know, first of all, they can get good quality out of it in a minute. I mean, he's a great composer, so it's not, But at the end of the day, I think they also can write many different styles. They just choose to, for this particular film, and certainly a Burton film, he's going to want a sort of a style. So maybe he doesn't have the opportunity to do a bunch of them and then to stretch his styles. And he's been just kind of focused on this because he's been getting the gigs for that. Yeah. I don't think they're not capable of it. I think that it's like being typecast.
Yeah.
As an actor, you're in a movie, you're playing a villain, you're always going to play a villain. If you see this guy, now he's a good guy, you're not going to buy it. So
I see him on the streets, you kind of want to beat him up.
Yeah, kind of like that. So I think what happens is we inadvertently end up in that pigeonholed moment because, saying, oh, well, he only does this, so let's go to this guy, and that kind of thing. Stylistically, unfortunately, I don't have the opportunity to be pigeonholed into like 40 movies. that should be a problem for me. But every person that I've worked with in terms of films and the independent movies, and this is really important because they expect you to be a chameleon. They expect you to say, hey, I need this kind of style for this scene. I need this style for this scene. And you need to be flexible with that. And remember, this is not your show. You are an element. So it takes a lot to swallow that pill, I got to tell you, because you spend so much time and energy and all these years of practice. And I want to compose this. I want to bring the life to the scene. And you're sitting there feeling great. And they're watching and screening, and he turns around to you and he goes, not feeling it, man. you got, like, who are you looking at when you wrote this? Like, this is not what the scene is. And I'm like, no, I see it this way. He goes, nah, it's not the way I see it. Next. And it's that fast. You can't take it personally. It's just, it's our business, it's what we do. But stylistically, I think that as a composer, we need to be open-minded. And our job for film is not to be out in front. We are as important as the flowers in the film. We kind of have that underscoring sort of thing. We have that background, and we have to understand our position in the hierarchy of things. And if we try to step over that line, we'll be really great composers and really good artists, but we won't get any work because it's not about us. If you want to do that, go put out an album by yourself and promote it. That's fine. But if you're working for somebody in the service business, which is what we do when we get hired, whatever the deal is, sometimes it's work for hire, sometimes you keep your royalties, whatever the business side of it is, you are being asked to do a task. And that task is to make that picture be more whatever they want. And using your music to bring that, you're lucky that you get a chance to do that. So, you don't want to go out there fighting too hard. In one sense, a friend of mine I know that this guy wanted music when the guy walked up the stairs for whatever reason. And he says, nah, I'm not going to do that. I don't like that. That doesn't fit. And during the screening, there was no music up the stairs. The director slammed on the fist on the counter, stopped the projector. He goes, where's the music? I said, you're fired. Get out. Right there in front of everybody, gone. They brought in another composer to finish. Geez. So it really hurts that way. So sometimes I always come from the school of, I have two favorite letters in the alphabet, and I tell my students this, O and K.
O and K.
That's it. No, not N, but OK. Okay. Those two letters in the alphabet, it saved your life. Because it's not your day at the end of the day. It's their movie, they're paying, or they're getting the money from somebody to do this, and they have to answer. You just deliver what they want, unless it's so far out of the whack of whelm, and you have a discussion with them, and depending on the relationship you have, you might be able to lobby for something. But in the beginning, when you're working with them, you have to just listen and deliver. And less said, better. Get to know them. You get become a little buddy. I mean, I'm on 11 movies with this guy, Mike, and I could tell him, I said, I don't like your idea. This is what I think you should do. And he'll listen to me. We have a history together. But you don't do that on the first film.
You give him your feedback, but ultimately you still acknowledge it's his call.
100%.
Right.
100%. And, it's choose your battles, because at the end of the day, it's going to be in the movie, in the mix. And that argument that you had over this little tiny scene, nobody is going to care or remember it as it passes in the movie. And you can spend 3 weeks arguing about it, and it goes like this, right by, and it's like a was. So it really doesn't pay. And you have to learn that. You learn that as life goes on. So many things are so important to us when we do it. But we're,
especially as an artist, because I still get pretty attached to all of my pieces. And if I do twice a week, I'm composing a soundscape for this podcast. If I can't use one of Matt's already pre-recorded orchestral, wonderful symphonic pieces,
I'll stop.
it'll be me and a bass guitar and a drum kit and whatever guitar player I can bring in. But I still kind of get attached to those pieces of music. And I just can't imagine, like, I guess this is a little bit of a side note or digression, but when it comes to, you talk about all the pieces you do make for films that just never see the light of day, and it seems like you have to be willing to let it go.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. If you write a piece, like we were talking about the piece that I was playing for you this earlier today. If you write a piece and it's not going to work for this, that doesn't mean it can't work for something else. The good thing about it is if you don't give it to them, or if you give it to them and they don't take it, they don't own it.
Right.
So you still own it. So whatever your deal is, make sure that unless it's going to be in the movie, it's still yours. Yeah. So I could take that piece and extract. I could take pieces from there. I have so much information from that and create another piece for some other piece of movie that I need for some kind of whatever I need. It's mine.
Recycling.
I could. We recycle all the time.
Yeah.
Whether it's on staff paper or if it's on ones and zeros, we have to recycle because it's your go-tos. Now, to touch on what you said about being attached, there's two schools of thought that I come to. When I write a piece of music that is, I'll give you an example. I wrote a musical for the stage that was workshopped, and we had a shot, okay. But that was a labor of absolute love, and I was very, very close to it. And when people wanted to come in and start changing certain things, I was very defensive about it because nobody asked me to do that. This was mine. And I didn't owe anybody anything. I didn't owe any explanations. Either you liked it or you didn't like it. Or if you wanted to change it, you had to have major justification to me. So that stuff that you write, that you love deep down inside, is not for the movie scores, not for the client. It's not your job. I look at it as a job. If somebody asked me to write something for something, we did circus music for one of the Addy Awards that had a circus theme up in North Carolina. So I wrote 4 circus themes. I was going to shoot myself. They were terrible little hokey things, but they loved it. Now, I'm not in love with it. I didn't say, oh my God, they're my themes. This is the lion theme. It doesn't go. Yeah, here you go. This is it. It was a job.
Circus music. Here you go.
Opus number.
Opus number, yeah, exactly. So when you write something like that, knowing what you're writing it for, you really want to have that separation. You don't want to fall in love with everything you do because then you get very defensive as an artist. You're not an artist. Yes, you're an artist, but you're not an artist at this point. You are a utility person.
You're an artisan.
Yes, an artisan. There you go.
You're an artistic craftsman.
Right, you're doing your job. You're hired to, like a lighting guy can design the lights, and that's it. He designs lights because he knows what to do. You're going to deliver music to enhance the scene.
Yeah.
You can't fall in love with everything you write. There's a lot of stuff that I've written that I don't even remember I wrote. When you hear it, like, okay, did I write that? And it was funny because it happens.
That's pretty cool.
Well,
I bet.
Yeah, it's really nice to remember it.
As long as the BMI checks keep coming.
Well, yeah.
There you go. So can you tell us about your process when you sit down to write music for a given scene, or even just to write music that might be used for a given scene? Is this an every time process? Is this unique? Tell us how that works.
Interesting question. I'd have to say I'm old school, purist at heart. I still write with a pencil and staff paper at a grand piano.
Much respect, man. Much respect.
I try not to sit at my rig.
Right.
Because either it doesn't work when I want it to, and I run out of steam after I technically fix it, or whatever the problem might be that day. But no, all kidding aside, when I have a feeling to write a piece of music, I'm at a piano with a pencil and staff paper. I will have my iPhone next to it because it is cool to record a little bit.
Sure, yeah.
And I'll do that, but I'm not looking for any stellar performances here.
Sure, right.
So I like to improvise a lot on piano. I like to picture what I'm seeing to play to if I'm doing a film. One of the good things about post-production and compositions, we get to see the scene. With the soap operas, we didn't see anything. I mean, we just sent it in and prayed that they used it. So with this is that you can actually tailor, and you could actually emote it over. You can overdo it, and then they won't like it again. It's too much, that kind of thing. So you got to kind of know where to, the balance beam. But I'll sit at a piano and I'll start just improvising, and I'll come up with maybe a measure or two or a phrase or a couple of motifs that I really like. I've got some go-to intervals that I play that I like to start with. It's that kind of Eastern European gypsy in me that my family is from Bucharest and Romania and Hungary, so I've got a lot of that in my blood.
Oh, I love that stuff.
And I somehow have I did this big Holocaust video, and I had to write all the opening themes for the introductions of people. And I did it all like in a klezmer style with, it was all MIDI, but it sounded really cool, like acoustic upright bass, but it was all MIDI stuff. And I spent hours and hours and hours articulating it. It took me 10 minutes to write and hours to make it sound like it. Because there was no money. I did it pro bono because of the cause.
And writing that in 10 minutes is a testament to Craig's ability. Because we have this experience. I actually wrote music to a Holocaust film once myself, a documentary, and that's hard. Getting the right tone out of that music is difficult.
It wasn't a lot of music, which was good. I mean, it was 30-second bump for the entrance of this person, and we interviewed 4 survivors, so we split it up. And I ended up editing the video too, because the editor decided to bolt when he found out there was no money.
Oh man!
I'm like, you know what? This is not going to happen. I said, give it to me. So there we go. Open Premiere. Now I'm editing video. We did the whole thing, and it was shown up, and it was great, and they loved it. So, but I would come up with a motif, a theme, and I would expand that a little bit on piano. Most of my writing for this type of thing, orchestral movies, is piano oriented in terms of how I start it. I hear everything in my head at the piano, as opposed to guitar. I mean, I've been playing guitar since I was 12. So yeah, I consider myself a fairly decent guitar player, but I'm not the guy that's going to be, on stage screaming with Eric Clapton.
Right.
That's just not going to happen. I don't profess to be that, but I use that guitar as a tool as well. Very rarely do I write on guitar. Now, one of the songs I think that I have for you is, I wrote it on guitar, but it was a song for this television show that I ended up getting an Emmy nomination for. So that was written on guitar because it was specifically a guitar type song. It wasn't going to be a piano song. So I was just sitting there literally messing around with chords. And then I called the guy up. I said, I think I have an idea for this. And he goes, I love it. That's the theme. I said, no, you don't understand. I said, this is the first thing I did. No, that's it. I love it. I love it. There. I'm like, all right, here you go.
Seemed a little too easy to be true.
It becomes a tongue in cheek with that. But getting back to the composition, the piano to me, is something that I can attach myself with. And I love the acoustic piano because you still feel the vibrations and you still feel part of the music. I mean, digital's great. Don't get me wrong. I teach it. I love it. I live it.
I know you're talking about.
But it feels, you know. And then when I'm writing, physically when I write, I remember what I'm writing as opposed to typing.
Yeah.
And I tell my students this too. I said, get a pencil out and write notes. Don't type in your phone that you're never going to look at. Don't type on a computer.
Yeah, there are studies, there are cognitive studies that support this idea that physical writing helps, not typing, not on a typewriter back in the old days or into computers now. That does not help you remember what you did. But the very fact that you went through the motor functions of writing something down, it sort of facilitates the encoding into the engram.
Because you remember drawing the letters.
Yeah.
You're not just pushing a button that represents a letter, an ASCII. You're actually creating this on paper, and your brain is remembering. You might not remember everything you write.
Because your brain had to write the thing.
Exactly.
Your brain had to make the motions.
Right. So you can always go back and say, hey, what'd you do the other day? Let me see. You can kind of get it. So there's a lot to say about physically writing. And sometimes, believe it or not, I'll write a little story about the scene before I play the music in English. And I'll look at the scene and I'm like, okay, what are they thinking about? What's the undertow? And how am I going to pull that out of the music? Because I won't step on the foundation of it. I'll just come up with some of this stuff that they're thinking about, that I think they're thinking about.
Sure. Yeah.
Might be fun to mess around with that a little bit later on.
Yeah, it might indeed
It might just be.
I can't wait. All right, that's a pretty good process.
Yeah, man, actually.
pretty much nailed all of those.
Quick question for you. Do you ever compose? Do you ever co-compose, or is it more of a personal thing? Do you work with other composers in terms of making a piece of music? I know you work with other musicians, vocalists, songwriters.
So collaborations that I do with other writers are typically songs.
Okay.
I'll definitely jump in the pot with collaborating on songs. I never really thought about collaborating with another composer to write a piece. For some reason, I don't know where there's room for that.
Two chefs in the kitchen.
Yeah, and
many.
it's like
One too many.
I don't know. Has it ever been done? Has Mozart ever hooked up with somebody and say, "Hey, let's write this together"? Not that I'm Mozart.
Yeah,
Just give me
Mozart, no.
has there any been? Has
Jazz composers, I think.
Jazz
Art
composers
Rogers
have done that.
That's different. No,
Emerson.
but you're talking about songwriters.
That's true.
Yeah.
So no, in songwriting, I think collaboration is king. I love collaborating with people writing songs. I'm all about that. But writing a piece of music for a film to collaborate, and I've done this at Union Bound because he brought this kid in, very nice kid, Dane, and we worked a little bit on. He brought me some themes, and I spit him back a couple of ideas from that. So I guess we did collaborate on that film score. But there's a lot of times you will see that, especially television shows like NCIS has two composers on it. There's just a lot of that because there's a lot of cues that need to be done.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you don't know if they're sitting there writing it together or if they're writing, here's 10 and here's 10 from you. So I don't know the answer to that. But as far as collaboration on a strictly classical, or I should say a score that I'm sitting here writing and then doing the MIDI mock, what I would do sometimes is I might hire somebody to help me get it out while I'm writing something else. So I might not have time to do the full mock and continue writing for the piece. So I will hire people to just basically fix what I did MIDI-wise, but not to compose.
Yeah, John Williams purportedly has a whole army of people to do that.
Yeah, I mean,
Assistant composers.
what's his name?
They're not
Hans
composing
Zimmer.
per se, but they're helping.
Hans Zimmer's got 80 people working at remote controls. So, I mean, you're talking about some significant, job security there. So that's
I mean, and now they mentions it. As far as classical music, I don't think I can think of a collaboration beyond what has happened in academic classrooms and things. I think all the examples I think of.
and I think television is split. Is got to be split with the cues because you're doing this in your house.
That's just too much of a division of labor. You've got to have more than one person can do on it.
I think so.
Yeah.
But to sit there and say, "Here's my idea," and then "Here's my idea. How can we put it together?" I don't know if that would even work.
It would take forever. I
just don't see the benefit of that.
What would be the benefit?
Now, collaborating in songwriting is an absolute benefit.
Well, because there's benefits. Somebody does the chords, somebody does the words.
And just bouncing things off each other and feelings and stuff. This, I don't know. No.
Yeah. There's a benefit if you're not as great a composer as the other person. And you can just kind of ride on their coattails.
Well, you learn.
Yeah.
Let's put it that
I
way.
wouldn't want that to be my benefit.
Or you learn.
You learn.
You'll learn something.
Every day you learn.
Hey, we said that before. Always try and work with musicians who are greater than you.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's what I was told.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. All right.
And I always have that humble attitude that you know a lot, but you don't know everything. And I know more than you, but you know more than me. So we could kind of work together, and that's how we'll both learn more. It's every day you learn something.
And that's what collaboration is.
Yeah.
It's collaboration of
right.
between
Healthy
composer
collaboration.
performers.
Yeah, and it's not an adversarial thing. It's not like, if I tell this guy my secret, he's going to steal my job, or it's not like that. If people are like that, I don't really want to hang with them.
Yeah, they're out there.
Oh, I'm sure they're out there, but I don't know any of them. If I met them, I don't remember them. So
Right.
We avoid those people.
Subconsciously weed them out of your lives.
All right.
Craig, you look pretty good in your clothes. They fit you nicely. I don't see any room for an orchestra in your back pocket.
actually,
What are some resources that you have? Because not everyone has an orchestra in their back pocket.
true.
Not anyone, I dare say, has an orchestra in their back pocket.
And not everybody has a budget for an orchestra,
Yeah.
even if it's not in your back pocket. And this is where the industry has gone into that level, and so has the expectations. And this is the problem we run into. Years ago, I would be able to sit at a piano and play a theme that I wrote for a director and say, I think that this is the theme for this, and then it'll build here, and then I'll bring the strings in here, and the brass comes in here, and they'll be like, yeah, I can feel it. Now, no. Now they want to hear the whole thing before they say no. So having that expectation, we need to have those resources to present that. And it's unfortunate because it takes a lot of time and a lot of energy to do that piece, to have them say no. Not that you couldn't use it somewhere else, and we discussed that before, but the point is that instead of just hearing it on piano and having them vision, they need to hear the strings. They need to hear that. And they can't hear it superficially with like a really low-end sample that sounds almost like it would sound if I worked a little more on it kind of thing, but they want to hear it finished. So those expectations have risen over the years because everybody's told them that they can do that. People can do this. Oh, they could just sit at a computer and bring out an orchestra.
Yeah.
So we know that they can't.
Right.
But what we have to do is we have to do the mock now that is very, very close to a finished master because we're not going to get the opportunity to put music in front of people. There's just not the budgets for those in this types of independent films and things. The resources, once I have the sketch idea, I'll orchestrate it. And I'll put it into all MIDI. And sometimes I have an EWI, the electronic.
Yeah.
So I'll play the flute, clarinet, trumpet parts. I'll play them in that way. And if I really can't do the fingering that well, I'll just play the same notes, but the rhythm there, and then I'll change the notes in MIDI, and then I'll use my breath control.
So a wind controller.
It's a wind controller, but I'm getting the breath control and I'm getting the nuance of the instrument where I don't have to go back as much and edit the articulation. So I do the same thing with the keyboard. Depending on what I'm playing, I'll kind of think that instrument. I'll breathe like that. If it's a percussion instrument, I'll use my fingers this way, like a vibes, like typing, as opposed to playing a piano because that's not how you play that instrument. So it's a different feel when it goes into the MIDI.
Yep.
I try to use samples that have multi-samples on each note. So I'm grabbing a sample at each velocity as opposed to a stretch. I try to avoid the stretch tune fourths. I like to have every note sampled. So East-West does that, I believe. And I've got some amazing instruments that are really, they sound really good. You still need to finesse them a lot. You still need to learn how to look at that instrument and be that instrument when you're doing the articulation, like cello. And you need to know the instrument. You need to know the bowing types. You need to know what these things mean and what's the difference between marcato and arco or pizzicato and spiccato, all these things, because that's what's going to make it sound really cool when you're putting it together. And the software allows you to do that. Unfortunately, it takes 4 times the amount of time it does to make that happen as it is writing the piece.
Yeah. I was, we did an episode on MIDI a little while ago, and I was recounting a tale where I composed a piece that I thought was pretty great, and I sent it into this guy at what is now Getty Images, but it was iStock back then. And they sent me a letter back, and I read it on the podcast. Pretty, it was pretty harsh on me.
Oh, really?
But it was based on the fact that I didn't take the time to articulate my instruments. And that's a very important thing, apparently, and it's not easy to do because you almost have to know so much about each instrument. You can't, you can go in there and say, there's the flute, quick time flute sample.
Quick time flute, yeah.
But you really do, the articulation is very important.
And I agree 1,000%. And unfortunately, the budgets don't allow us to just give that mock of here's the flute type of sound, and when a real flautist is going to play, it's going to sound beautiful.
Yeah.
They don't have the money to have that. They have to have this MIDI thing sound beautiful.
Yeah.
So they rely on a lot of the processing and the reverbs, and now you got to be an engineer as well. So you really got to know and wear a lot of hats, not just a composer. And there are guys out there that don't compose, but they'll do mocks for you. So you send them your tracks, and they'll come back to you. It's like gorgeous stuff. Like, oh my God, this is great. And that's a cool thing to do because that's an opportunity for a lot of people to make a living because you might not be the composer, but if you could deliver back the sound almost like a recording engineer, right?
Yes.
You would be extremely in demand.
Yeah.
You know, so that's something for you guys to think about out there. If you say, "Well, I can't compose, but I got my MIDI stuff down."
What do you call that position?
I don't know. What would you call that?
I don't know.
Mock engineer.
Mock
Engineer. I like that. Yeah.
That's
Go
cool.
with it. I don't know. Maybe we just found a new position in our world.
I'm going to start a website tomorrow. We'll mock up your compositions.
composition.
Mockengineer.com.
Yeah, you're charged by the measure. Or
Sure,
the
charged
page.
by the measure. Yeah, there you go. Oh, nice.
There's always a way.
I'm excited to hear some music now, though.
Yeah, let's see here. I guess this is the point where we kind of get an idea of what kind of things you've done in the past.
Okay.
Hopefully we can listen to about 3 tracks and maybe
Okay.
talk about them a little bit.
Sure.
So first off, when we came into this episode, we were listening to a piece that you wrote called Time Passage. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was an underscoring for a film called Destiny Road. That was a reflective moment when like the character was thinking back on certain things that brought him to a certain point, and I wanted to have propulsion in there and a build. So it started off, kind of just sort of that airy, ambient kind of thing, and then it started to build with an idea of underneath rhythmical kind of thing of motion, without getting in the way of the montage, because you got to be careful. You don't want to time it to the movie of every picture and having the note change every time the picture changes. It's kind of redundant, and you kind of expect that.
Yeah.
So I like to have it sort of almost polyphonic idea of rhythm based onto the imagery of the footage itself. Unfortunately, it's a podcast. Not unfortunate, but we can't see it.
Yeah.
But if you go out and watch Destiny Road, it was actually opened up in Brazil. It's still playing there on television now, and it should be in the States fairly soon. I don't know. I'm not in that part of the business of that movie. So, but yeah, that was for that.
Very pretty.
Thank you.
Kind of enjoyed that. Now, let's move on, shall we?
Sure.
Let's talk about A Long Way Off, because a lot of people write music for film and television thinking it's just going to be music, but sometimes they actually do compose words, lyrics for these
So
compositions.
this was an interesting project. It was a great project. It's a faith-based film, and it was based on the prodigal son.
Oh, cool.
Okay, so the kid gets money, he goes and blows all his money, comes home, the father accepts him, the brother's upset.
Yeah.
It's pulled right out of the scripture. So one of the producers of the film was friends with Krista Wells. Krista is a beautiful artist, a great songwriter. I had an opportunity to collaborate with him. We go back to that, collaborating on the song. We both co-wrote the opening theme, and it's basically a theme song for the film.
Mm-hmm.
Once we wrote it, we then produced it in the studio. So I got to play all the guitar parts, and she played piano, and I played some keys, and we had everybody in a beautiful drummer, a great bass player. It was a really organic track, because we didn't want to do it sort of modern MIDI and danceable kind of thing, because it wasn't that kind of movie. It was a very traditional feel. It was a very organic and real feel. So we wanted to put those real instruments in there, but we wanted to make it as a song that would stand alone on the radio, because it was being released by word.
I see.
And the brought it in, and we actually wrote the lyrics together. We wrote the melody together, the chord changes she came up with, and we arranged them differently together. It was a really good collaboration, and she sang it. And she's got an incredible voice. This is a GMA Songwriter of the Year, I think, in 2006. She wrote a beautiful song for, I think it was Natalie Merchant, called Held.
That's a funny thing you say that, because when I heard her voice, one of the first things I thought was Natalie Merchant.
Yeah, she's just a doll. She was a doll to work with. I really look forward to working with her again someday. But it was a great experience. And what I liked about it is that, as the producer and the music supervisor on the film, and don't get me wrong, I'm not the producer of the film, but the music producer.
Yeah.
Okay. I really had carte blanche on a lot of things on this particular movie. This was about the 5th or 6th film for Uptone with Mike Davis, who's a great guy to work with. And, you know, he just put a lot of trust in me on this one, and it worked. I really said, the way we opened up the movie with the song was very different than you would think would be a religious type film, you know, a kind of faith-based. And it was very, very, very cool experience. And the movie did well. It's out on many download stations. It was been in, you know, I guess, who sells DVDs now? Target. Whoever sells them.
Best
Walmart,
Buy, maybe.
Best Buy, yeah, I don't know. They're out there. But it's a nice movie. It stars Jason Berkey and Zoe Myers. It's got some really nice talent in there, and it was a lot of fun.
Let's give that a listen, shall we?
Absolutely.
Let's actually give it a listen.
Let's actually listen.
We can actually do that here.
We could.
I got the technical skills-ish. So this is The Long Way Off.
And this was recorded in Raleigh, North Carolina.
What's that percussion I'm hearing?
That is, what did he call it? African spider eggs.
You remember what it felt like to pitch your tent in a field of starlight. You were this close to heaven. Then there's something
It's a
calling
great sound
you.
on that guitar.
Were
Thanks.
you strong enough to
Are
see
you playing that?
through?
I am, yes.
Very nice.
'Cause I was weak, I couldn't stay. I took the long way home, but you saw me coming from a long way off. You never stopped loving me. You never stopped loving me. You gave me all you could. You let me leave, you knew I would have to hit bottom. And when my life was all but gone, I found the road that you had drawn to you, and you were there waiting.
Now, in this case, I think the words are kind of related to what's going on in the picture. But when it comes to using like busy soloing or busy content during parts of dialogue, when you're doing a backtrack or a sound score, like I don't have a lot of soloing on our soundscape bumpers.
There is a nice guitar solo in there, I do have to tell you.
Well, if someone's talking over a really beautiful guitar solo, you're kind of torn between, am I listening
This
to
is
the
true.
dialogue and am I
is true.
getting blown away by this awesome solo? So I think that's when you're doing film scores, that's the time, it's acceptable time
Yeah.
to be a little minimalist or whatever.
Yeah.
Callous fingers and tender hands. Hold on while seasons come and go.
Okay, let's move on to the next one, shall we?
Sure.
What you got there?
So this is a little different. This one, I did not play on piano.
You did not.
No, I did not. I had my guitar, and I wanted to just. It's another kind of a, I don't want to say a time passage piece, but it's sort of a pensive, reflective piece. It was done for a movie called Don't Pass Me By, and if I can recollect the scene that this was in, I believe this was in a conversation where she discloses that she might have cancer. So it's kind of like I didn't want that kind of typical Hallmark dreamy, kind of thing. Like I kind of wanted to put something a little bit different behind it. I believe that this is the scene. Don't quote me on it because it's been a few years since I've seen the film. But if you want to go ahead and play that a little bit, it's really a lot of acoustic guitar and some electric swells, just a little different.
All right, here we go. This is called It's a Swell String. Electric guitar.
And that's like just
Volume swells?
volume swells. Yeah.
Beautiful. There's a strange rhythmic element I'm hearing. I can't identify.
It's a little delay clicking.
Vocals?
Little sample vocals, yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely kind of gloomy.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
very not consistent with what I normally write, but I felt it was something different
Yeah.
for the film. They're very young in the movie. They're in their 20s, early 30s, so I didn't want to have, the drama behind it.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
It makes me think that the real art is in not taking maybe your first blush, like, all right, well, this is a big dramatic scene, so let's have, like you say, the dreamy, stringy kind of thing, but to really consider the emotions of the characters in the scene.
Yeah.
And find music that reflects that.
That's exactly right, because that's what I tend to do. I'll look at the character before I look at the story.
Yeah.
And I want to get into the character's mind. And what is she thinking, or what is he thinking, and how is that going to play out? Because let's be honest, it's all fake, right? Because
Sure.
it's movies. We're in the street, and we meet in the parking lot or outside the studio, and we said hello to each other, right? We didn't hear any music. There was no music playing in the air. With, oh, here's Matt. Hi. Da-da-da. That doesn't happen in life. So this stuff is not real.
Right.
So we have to make sure that we're not overstepping this thing.
I've never spontaneously broken out into a song and dance.
No, not unless
After
I
all
had
the
to.
musicals I've seen in my life, it's never once actually.
There's always something you could say before you sing it, that's for sure. But no, so I wanted to take the approach. And it's funny you should mention that, because one of the cues, and I'm talking about a cue, just so if everybody doesn't understand the word.
Please.
So a cue is nothing more than a piece of music that goes under a scene that is numbered. It's a cue 36 of scene 4, scene 5. And we just, in our world, we just say cue. It's just a piece of time. And that is designated for a specific spot in the film. We'll call that a music cue.
Like an insert point on the timeline?
Yeah,
more or
exactly.
less?
An in and out. And then actually that piece goes on a cue sheet. So you could get royalties on that piece of music when and if it ever plays, where you get performance royalties like television or foreign film. So that's important to know that particular piece is, and I don't know exactly, 2 minutes and 13 seconds, and it was played at this particular point. And if nobody talks over that, then it's known as a featured background. If somebody talks over that, then it's just a background.
Then it's just a cue.
Less money.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And if it's just the theme of the movie, then you get more.
It's like an extra with the speaking part.
Yes.
Yeah,
Vice versa.
exactly. The minute somebody talks over that, it knocks down to background music.
That's interesting.
So, yeah.
And you said there's different royalties,
Yes.
prices, or
Yeah, there's structures.
expectations.
Yeah, there's different structures of that.
Featured background. This is the,
That's what I call
I've
it.
learned a new term
I've
now.
called. Well, it's probably not. But it's either a background or a feature.
Okay.
So technically, if nobody talks over it, it's considered feature. Mm-hmm. And T is theme. So if it's the front end or the back end, that's called themes.
Yeah.
So that's indicated with a T. Mm-hmm. A feature, FV, is featured vocal. F, just F is a featured background.
Yeah.
And B is a background for or BR, like how are they this structured out of that whatever company.
Wow.
And that's how it delineates on those big, long spreadsheets. So every single cue is listed for the exact second that you're using it. Because if it's television, it pays differently depending on the time that it plays. Because the prime times pay more because there's more eyes, there's more advertising dollars. 3 o'clock in the morning doesn't pay as much as 7 o'clock at night.
Of course.
Yeah.
Are those price structures determined by a union, or is it kind of
No,
more
it's BMI, ASCAP, and CSAC. It's pretty much their performance royalty organizations.
Those are effectively kind of union-like in their approach. Those are effectively,
See, BMI, ASCAP, it's a formula. Because they make their money too. Make no mistake, they take some stuff off the top. And then if you got your PROs that your sister PRO or overseas, so your sub PRO, they're going to take the money. It takes like 2 years to get royalties. Like if anything's shown in January 2019 in Brazil, I won't see any money from that until 2021 third quarter or so. So it takes a while to get computations and all that stuff. You just put it out there. You don't count it. You don't do this for the royalty money. You just do it. And if things happen, that's great. And if they don't, you just keep going and trying it again.
It's like finding money on laundry day. Oh, there's a $20 bill.
And just like that, it's a $20 bill because if anything's on the net, it's considered streaming. So I don't have only got into that of how much money we don't make on streaming. So that is streamed.
That's just depressing.
Like A Long Way Off is like been played so many times on. I think it was on Netflix, then it was on TV. I don't remember. And I'm like, wow, this is great. And then I look at my royalties, like this is not so great. Somebody please buy the record.
Good stuff.
So tell us about Union Bound.
So Union Bound is another independent film from Uptone. We were contracted to do basically everything you hear, from location audio, Foley, sound design, music, mixing. So I always say anything you hear is all my fault.
Full responsibility.
Full responsibility. I can't yell at anybody. It's all me. Me and my guys and girls. So, when you're dealing with an independent film, location audio on location, not in a sound stage, it's a controlled environment, you got to do a lot of creative placement, booms, mics, and stuff like that, because there's so many things that are going on that you just have no control over. But birds, cars, things like that. And this is a Civil War period piece, so there were no airplanes, no cars,
Can't have that.
No. So it was very difficult. It was in the middle of the summer at the hottest month of the year in July in North Carolina. Filmed on a old plantation with the original bugs and snakes that were there probably since the Civil War.
The props department didn't bring them in?
No, they didn't have to. And these poor guys were in wool suits for their costumes.
That's immediately what I thought of when you said the hottest part of the year.
So I felt so bad for the actors because they were in the costumes, and we had a lot of water on the set. And there's some people that got a little heat stroke. But it was a challenge. It was a challenging shoot, and that on one side of it was a challenge. The other challenge on it was the music side. So I mean, Mike Davis, great producer, really great guy. I've done 9 films with him or so. We get along great. Well, we don't see eye to eye on something. It never becomes personal. It becomes of the thing itself, of what the assignment is. I came up with the theme of the Union Bound, and I wanted to keep it very modal, non-result, no resolutions to a degree, because to me there was no resolution in the war, even though the North technically won. It just didn't have that happy ending,
Right, yeah.
And a lot of people lost their lives that maybe shouldn't have. And Mike was looking at this as from a different perspective. He was looking at it that Joseph Hoover, whose diary that we actually did the movie about, was sort of a hero, and he wanted the music to be sort of uplifting and like I don't want to say a superhero, but more of that kind of brassy, and I was more into the string sound orchestration and kind of like pulling it back.
Yeah.
And it just never gelled. It just didn't go. So I did the piece. The first entrance of this piece, I wrote a 7-minute piece of music as over the montage of the opening credits that he wanted to have 7 minutes of slow-mo, which is what what I have actually gave you here. And that slow-mo is has been cut down to like 2 minutes now with different music. I did work with the composer with that to, kind of help get it together. And a lot of my cues went into Union Bound. So I wasn't fired from the project. As a composer, I was just asked to use a different theme and help because he liked that other theme better. I didn't agree with it. It had a 571 resolution, and I was like, "Please, why? You don't do that," And
The authentic cadence.
yeah,
The
it's,
old
come
authentic
on,
CD. Come on, man.
But be that as it may, again, O and K worked out well, and I got to do more work with Mike and stuff, and we moved on. You move on.
Sure.
So I still, to this day, think that the theme that I wrote for this really depicts more of the imagery of the film, of the whole story, but it's not mine.
Yep.
So that's what this is. So you don't have to hear it for 7 minutes, quite long, but you could get an idea.
So this is the Union Bound theme.
And those are real drums.
Real drums?
Yes.
Good. Cello?
MIDI cello.
MIDI cello.
MIDI, yeah.
Still though, I mean, convincing in my opinion.
Oh yeah. A real cello. Yes, no.
Horns are difficult in MIDI. Are those MIDI horns?
Extremely difficult. Yeah.
This mock is 75% there. I stopped after he said no.
Yeah, right. At 75% of what it could have been, I still think it sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
So you can see the soldiers scrambling over each other in slow motion.
Yeah.
People hitting the dirt.
Beautiful imagery. I mean, if you see the shot that I had a score too, it's beautiful. Now the theme should be coming in pretty soon. So that's 7 minutes. It's a long time to score for something.
You don't want to just give the theme away at the top.
I think so, yeah.
Gotta make them wait for it a little
But
bit.
the other producers said, no, that's not going to work. So he actually cut it down to like 2 minutes.
7 minutes is a long time. 7 minutes.
This is my theme. Now here's the...
Yeah. That's very period appropriate.
Yes, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Pentatonic? Sounds kind of pentatonic.
Natural minor.
You mentioned a mode, yeah. Is there
Oh, it's Aeolian.
Aeolian? Okay.
Aeolian. Yeah, so natural minor.
Those drums. Is that a real?
Yeah, those are real toms.
Yeah.
All the drums were real. We did all of that, and I kind of pieced them in.
That's great, man. Ooh, what's happening here?
A little magic transposition.
I love that.
How to get more mileage out of your music. And the repetitiveness of the theme in different colors was bringing in the scene, as the scene got more intense,
Yeah.
the action. And you'll hear now another change pretty soon. It should go up to the major, to flat 6.
Oh.
Right there.
Yeah. Matt and I are just sitting here smiling because we're just listening to it and enjoying it so much.
Yeah.
Glad you like it.
Yeah.
It has that. It almost reminds me of some of those Civil War era hymns. You know that, but a sort of a melancholic version, sort of how I like Mahler did the melancholic version of Frere Jacques in his first
Yeah,
sentence.
yeah.
It's like almost taking one of those Civil War hymns that were supposed to be so warlike and heroic and making them melancholy.
And that's why taking that, I was I needed to have not that,
Yeah.
I just wanted to stay away, and unfortunately ended up.
I would imagine perfect authentic cadences are very difficult when it's not supposed to be your show. I think I got to imagine that any perfect authentic cadence will just pull people's attention to the music. And usually was a
funny.
bad way.
I played the theme. I played the theme for a friend of mine who was actually the mixer on the show Lost for many years, and he's a great composer too. And he's listening to it. He's, oh, this is great. This is great. When I told him it was past, he's like, what? That 7-minute epic? I'm like, yeah, it's all right. And, yeah, they cut it to 2, and they had this other kid come in. He goes, let me hear what he did. And he's like, oh, God, 5-1? Oh, my God, I'll leave him alone. I liked it. It's
Leave
fine.
him alone.
What are you going to do? What are you going to do? But, it's still a nice piece of music. I definitely
absolutely.
have legs for it someplace else in life. So it's,
Yeah, I'm sure it could.
it was very, it took a lot of hours to do what you hear.
Yeah.
And it's still not done. To me, I mean, I still would need to go and finesse more, but it'd be easy to print everything out and hand it to the ASO.
Yeah.
Right. Very good, man. So let me try and think back here. We listened. Was that the third one that we've actually listened to?
Yeah,
Yes.
that was the opening, the third one, and this is the third one, and then you have the closing if you wanted to play that later.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, you ready to get this rolling?
Yeah, let's do the game.
I've been looking forward to this the whole episode. It's time to play a game, gentlemen. Here's what we're gonna do. Craig, you are armed with my Yamaha digital piano.
Yes.
That's all you have.
That's all I have.
This is like being on the desert island where you only have like one little, thing to survive.
Yeah, and I would bring like a flare gun so someone would know I'm on the. Okay.
No, I wouldn't worry about the flare gun as long as the keyboard worked.
I would use my flare gun to make a fire, and then it would go out 10 minutes later, and I'd be screwed. Naked and afraid.
So what is this game?
Okay, here's the game.
Do tell.
We're gonna give you 4 scenarios, 2 from me and 2 from Matt. Okay. On the fly, you have not heard these yet, have you?
I have not.
You have no prior knowledge to these scenarios, and then you at the piano are gonna compose chords or a theme or something that would go along with that as you're hearing it described, or we'll describe it. You could play it afterwards.
I love it.
You ready?
Yeah.
Let's go for it.
So shall I start us off?
Yes.
Okay, Craig. There's a guy being lowered in a safe into the Hudson River. I'm kidding.
Oh my God! I saw that movie. Wait a minute! I did that movie. I could play that.
Yeah, he was about to think, oh, I got one for this.
Yeah, right.
No problem. No, seriously, here we go. Okay, we're in the hospital. It's been a trying story for our cast. Not unlike This Is Us or Parenthood. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Family ties have been severed, and we lost a few members along the way. However, a new life is born. In slow motion, the mother is handed her new child.
Okay. So we're going to start with telling the little story about the loss.
Yeah. Camera's tracking down the hospital hallway. Things are lightening up.
baby gets handed.
Very nice.
Oh man, that was so much.
I am impressed.
That was so much greater than I thought it would be. Honestly, that was really fantastic.
Yeah, I love
that.
I love the progression from the loss to the baby being handled, and
It's
you know,
like
it's
kind of darkness and then little dapples of light come in.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then at some point it just goes into full on feel
Yes,
good.
I'm impressed. I am impressed. Okay, next one. Next scene.
Your turn, buddy.
So, a man runs for his life in New York City. He's being chased, but we can't see the attacker. He dodges through the alleyways, knocking over garbage cans.
Now I know you don't have the drums.
Don't need drums. Got
right.
We
drums.
don't need drums.
There's my drums.
All right.
All right. So let's see.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very good.
Something
Very
like that.
nice. Yeah, I can actually see that. It actually conjures the image in my brain. That's nice.
What? Let me ask you this: if this was an actual scene in a movie, would you be replacing that with a different instrumentation?
Yes.
What kind of
absolutely.
instruments would have been
so,
taking those parts?
This would be all the low brass, ba ba ba, boom, 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 and then the garbage can idea. If it was a sound design thing, then I'd leave it. But if it was depicted in the orchestration, just be spurts of pizzicatos or
Yeah.
that kind of thing running around. And I'm not worried about the notes right now. It's just the idea of the splash.
Okay.
So I don't worry about, like, if I'm composing, that's on a C minor chord. I wouldn't do that for the whole thing, but that would be my idea to start. And then I'd fix it,
Yeah.
make it musical, because
Sure.
I want to get my idea down.
Yeah.
And then if I did that on acoustic piano, as I just did, I literally would rewriting sketches of that. There's no way I would write that.
Right,
It'd be
yeah.
like, like a splat. And I'll say splat.
Yeah.
'Cause no one sees that stuff but me.
That's funny.
But that's how I'll start. And I'll start envisioning that thing and then getting, the mode.
Yeah.
But he said it was starting to run. He didn't say he was walking, then ran.
Yeah.
So I picked it up, and immediately we just see that cut into the guy running.
Yeah.
So that's why it started like that.
Urgent, busy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Minor key.
Yeah,
danger.
and coming from that to that flat six is always
Phrygian kind of half cadence.
Yeah.
Well, it came up-
It would just be a motion to six in a minor
motion to
key.
six.
it's all it is, yeah.
Ooh.
Because a
Yeah,
flat.
but it does have kind of a Phrygian half cadence feel to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the idea. I wrote a piece for one of my musical, and I use that.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So it encompassed that little flat, it's
Yeah.
unpredictable.
Yeah.
But I figured that would really cool, like dissonant.
Yes.
Nice.
What was that? Just tritone?
No, that was just a B and a C. Minor. It was like
Okay. Major seven.
Yeah. Minor second.
flat nine, actually.
Flat nine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Flat nine.
Making this more complicated.
Sorry. The theory of me is coming out.
Don't get us started.
Yeah. We'll go on. Are you ready for your next scenario?
I am.
This has been great so far. Very well done. Now, this might be a very short thing because it's just going to be one quick moment. So it might just be a matter of you choosing the chord.
Okay.
Okay, dig it?
Yep.
A woman is home alone in her kitchen. All is well, and she is making dinner for a friend who will be arriving later. She's ready to cut up some tomatoes and goes for the knife next to the cutting board. It's gone. So this is the sound that we hear the minute the camera cuts to the knife not there.
And there's nothing before that.
No. Yes.
Dramatic.
Yes.
I mean, so that was a Webern triad.
A Webern triad.
Was that the Tristan chord?
It's kind of like that,
Kinda
yeah.
like- okay.
It's I'm using C, D, and E flat. but I'm
Oh,
spreading
wait,
them.
yeah, no, right, yeah. Not the Wagner Tristan chord. I'm an idiot. Yeah, the Webern.
Webern triads. And I can
Yeah.
also another way to do that, but
Yeah,
that was a little too much for me. So
Yeah.
almost to that.
it's in.
Where can it go from?
It's an 013.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Three.
Yeah.
Exactly.
nerd.
Oh, come on, nerds, man. I had this whole thing written out from 1987 on my, it's like literally every chord. Next time you're in my office, I'll show it to you.
I want to see it.
So that actually lets me go somewhere else if you wanted to.
Uh-huh.
So if you wanted to look where the knife might have been, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
See?
Yeah.
Love it.
That kind of thing.
Love it. It's got kind of like the trail off.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
It's not just the surprise of the disappearance, but that,
Right.
that trailing off of when you start to wonder what happened.
Real quick, because our listeners haven't heard the pitch classes thing just yet, or the set theory.
Right.
So you said those notes were a...
Oh, I'm sorry. It was just C below middle C,
Uh-huh.
and then a D above middle C,
D. Yeah.
Say so a
or C, D above high C. So that would be a 9.
No, a 9 chord, yeah.
And then an E flat.
Oh.
So a minor third. Well, I mean, 13th, however you guys want to.
Yeah, so if you condensed all of those and right next to each other, called C0,
Yeah.
C0.
then it would be the intervals 0, 1, and 3.
3, right.
We'll get
Four
to
zeros.
we'll get to set theory
Yeah, okay.
in due time, but
Cool, but if you wanted to play that chord yourself, you know how.
Yes.
yeah, it's C, D, and E flat.
And I actually played an octave low C's to get the thug.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
That kind of.
covering a lot of
Nice.
ground.
nice. Yeah.
That's great.
All right, last one.
Last one.
Last one. Okay, so, and this may be the hardest one. It would be the hardest one for me. A man is at the grocery store trying to flirt with a woman. Just as soon as he catches her eye, and not paying attention to his surroundings, he walks into a 6-foot-tall display of soup cans. They come crashing down, making a loud noise. This is the music.
This is kind of a comedy here. This is we haven't done comedy yet.
Yeah, and
Comedy's
that's why
one
it
of
would be
the
the hardest
hardest
one for
things
me.
to
'cause
write.
That's
I
why
have
it's
to
the
tell
last
you,
one.
Kablevsky's got it, man. All right, so let's see. Supermarket. There's always that little muzak.
Yeah, the
going
little
on.
music. Yeah,
So let's play around with that a
Yeah.
little bit, shall
All
we?
right.
the banal kind of chord.
Yeah.
Just walking down the aisles. He sees her.
He sees her.
Oh, this is the romance. I feel
Yeah.
romantic. He's overwhelmed. His day has changed.
This is hard, man. Thank you. And now he's turning, and all of a sudden, no. This is hard. I'm gonna do it again. Here we go. All right, we got right. All right, so he's
This is where he sees her.
I don't know.
I told you that was going to be the
That was
hardest one.
hard, but it's like it's the tomato cans that got me. you know?
The tomato cans get everybody. Yeah.
So I'm thinking
I would wonder if the music ought to just stop. Like when he goes, and it'd just be like a Foley thing. Where he just,
Yeah,
and, then
and again,
all
you
that
got-
romance just gone, you know, and
Yeah.
Like a
But that would just be me.
needle
I
being
don't-
taken
yeah.
off the record.
Yeah, that could work.
needle
too.
scratch, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
And then all that romance
That would have
just
to have
fell
a
off
little
'cause
bit
he
more
just-
thought into this. Sorry. That would, but 3 out of 4 is not bad.
I would definitely give you a solid 92% on that.
You still get an A.
Hey, that's about it. That's all we could ask for. A440 or 432?
Music joke.
Think about like Curb Your Enthusiasm. Are you familiar with that show?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
It's just that kind of, ha
Yeah.
kind of stuff. But
Do
you
you
don't
know
want to
anything
just
about
say
that song?
wonk 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 wonk.
Do you know that song?
The Curb.
The piece?
the theme?
Yeah.
Do you know that was written in the 70s?
I did not know.
Oh,
And
man.
it was sitting on some library for the longest time, and somebody heard it and said,
And
this
just said,
would be a
this is
good
great for this
theme."
show. Well, that's all we can do for copyright reasons. But,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, no, let's not play that.
Just the first theme.
But that just tells you that nothing's bad.
Yeah.
It's just got to be out there, and somebody, it might just fall on somebody's
It's just got to
ears.
find its home.
Find its
the right-
home, and
yeah.
if it doesn't, it doesn't. But if it's not out there, it's never going to find a home. So
Yeah.
just keep writing, keep putting it out, get on these websites. Licensing is king.
Ah.
No one's making money selling CDs now. We all know that.
Yeah.
You get your music out there on a show, you got two things happen. You got royalty checks coming in. You might even get some upfront money for the sync license.
Yeah.
If you're working with like Song Trader, which is a great company, or you've got things like that out there on the web. And the second thing is you got bragging rights, because it's all about social media today. So
Sure.
don't tell me you're not going to tell your friends if one of your songs is on the blacklist.
Right.
You're going to be like, oh my God.
I want to tell all of my friends.
Anybody I don't even know.
And several people I don't. Yeah.
Right. Just going to blast it out there to my people that and because now I'm going to get some credibility. Not that you're not good, but now you'll be known a little bit for something. And then you could use that to get someplace else. Make sure that you post these things. You're not being conceited by telling people what you've done and what you're doing, because you have to promote yourself before you expect somebody else to promote you.
Yeah.
And that's in
Yeah.
any genre of our business, whether you want to be a rock star or whether you want to be a composer or a sound designer,
Podcaster.
podcaster. If you don't promote yourself, no one's going to take it seriously to promote you.
Yeah. Why would they?
Exactly. So it's a lot of work, and it's fun work though.
Yeah.
Hey,
We enjoy it.
this is we're kind of closing it out a little bit, so
Sure.
we're gonna get into some inspirational stuff, right? But here's one thing I have, because I've struggled with this, and I think every composer writer has struggled with this at one point. You say to yourself, "There's only 12 notes in the Western scale. There's only so many chord progressions. How could I do anything that hasn't been done before? What's the point of even sitting down writing something? Because in a world of millions and millions of people, and all the time since music has begun, since the creation of music, what could I do that hasn't been done?" And I struggled with that for a long time. And at one point was like, why even sit down and try?
I don't think it's the idea of trying to do something that's never been done. I think that you do things that have been done in a different way. And yes, we only are limited to 12 notes, but we're not limited to any rhythms of those 12 notes.
Yes.
And if you go into what was called a record store back in the day and just looked around,
Kids or record store was it? No, I'm just
yes, that's where they sold records.
They sold these little discs
Yes.
with
Big CDs. And you look around and you just see all the albums and see how much music was written with just those. There's different genres. And what it really comes down to is not the organization of those 12 notes, but it's the relationship of those 12 notes to each other with varying rhythms. And that's why it's so important to understand the both elements of the melodic and the rhythmic element of this, because that's what's going to tell you a story. When I do a songwriting workshop, I tell, they always tell it to me, a lot of people, I have these words, but I don't know how to sing them. I said, no, you do. You're just not listening to yourself. Because if something is singable, Why do you want to change the rhythm of that? If you say, I love the sunshine, and that's your lyric, why would you want to say it any differently than saying it da 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 da? Mm-hmm. That's the rhythm of the lyric. It's done for you. Why change it? Like, you don't go da 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 da. I love the sunshine. I love the sunshine. You don't do that. You say it in English, and the way you say it, because that's how people perceive it and hear it, and that's how they can remember it. So why, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Put notes to those, and now you're creating your own melody. The rhythm's already built in. Mm-hmm. If you're doing a classical, when I say classical, an instrumental piece, it's a little bit difficult because then you have a line that you want to create emotion on, and both motion and emotion, and that comes to the rhythm aspect of it. So I don't think that we have to go out there and try to reinvent the wheel. We just become another rung on it and just join it.
And are expressing ourselves in doing so.
Yeah.
Maybe my original mindset, it can be likened to someone saying, there's only so many vowels and syllables. What can I say? What words can I use that haven't already been said?
Yeah, right. Well, a lot.
Yeah, apparently.
I mean, it looks like if you look at it from that aspect of it, is letters make up words, words make up phrases, phrases make up sentences, sentences make up paragraphs, paragraphs make up stories, right? So if we look at it from a musical point, notes, group of notes make up the idea, the motif, the phrase, phrases connected together make up the line of the music, the repetitive of that, and then we have the different sections. So it just builds on that. And here's a cool way that you could kind of take what you're saying, Jeremy, is like, how do we make something different? Well, a lot of people have been taking traditional instruments and using them in non-traditional ways and getting cool sounds out of that. So that's a way that you can push the envelope with that. And we can write a piece for violin, but if we put the violin underwater and put a mic that's in a plastic bag, I suppose, underwater, what would it sound like? And can we get some cool track out of that to lay in? And people will go, wow, that's really cool. How'd you do that? I put a violin underwater. I hope it wasn't a Strat.
And also, you say we're limited to 12 notes, but are we?
Well, we're not if we're out of Western.
Yeah,
We know
I mean,
that.
we get there's plenty of non-Western scales, and even in Western music, microtonality is a thing since the 20th century.
It does, but it has to be done electronically. I mean, unless you could bend inside the instrument, which is very difficult to do. But a lot of the synthesizer stuff you can get into microtoning, which is very cool. But it's another realm of that, and it has been done. But how has it been used might change, and that's how you could be. And that's why the term innovation is different than inventing. You can't invent it anymore; it's been invented.
Right.
We need to just innovate from that.
I like that.
Fascinating. Yeah. So how can we learn more about your music and how to your films and how to
Sure.
find it?
My website, Center Sound Productions, just as it sounds. My email is Craig@Center Sound Records.
Okay.
And if you type in Center Sound Records, it's going to go to Center Sound Productions because we expanded. We're not just the record label anymore. We're doing, pretty much all the scope of this. And on there, you'll see all the credits and all the records that we've done and all of the films and the artists that we've worked with. And IMDb, of course, just IMDb me. And there's a whole list of my stuff on there.
Oh, wonderful.
Yep. And I'm very accessible.
And the spelling?
Brandwein.
Okay.
And that'll also come up with the stage name, YNNE, for my family. Yep.
Very good.
Very nice.
Anything else?
I am also teaching music technology at the University of Alabama at Birmingham.
Hey, that's actually become a very impressive department since I left it, which many moons ago. But myself and Matt were both recording music tech majors there.
We were.
And it's you probably had a good part to do with that.
Yeah, we're building. I have to tell you that the students are using the studio a lot more than they were in the past, making records the old way, miking up instruments.
I recall when the studio was a closet in the building next to the music building.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so to have seen it to come to where it is now is just is very gratifying.
What's nice is that there are, I don't want to say fighting, but they're clawing for space in terms of the students. Like, I want it this day, I want it that day. And poor James is going, because we have a staff engineer,
nuts,
which is great. And he's just been there constantly. I have 10 students in my Rec Tech 1 class, and that's probably the most it's ever seen.
This has been a great episode.
I agree. Do you have any more words of encouragement you'd like to share before we get out of here?
The only thing I could say is, If you want to do this, just do it.
Just do it.
Just
Do it. I mean, there's no magic pill. Not one person has the same story of where they got and where they went to. You're going to run into brick walls. You're going to run into people that you want to argue with. Don't argue with them. O and K. Just remember those 2 letters. It'll get you a lot longer. Trust me. The argument you're not going to win. It's not your game. You want to do it on your own, go make your own movie. But just do it and flood the channels that you have opportunities to show your craft. But I do want to tell you one thing, and this is just coming from extreme experience. You can't go in there half-baked. Like years ago, we were able to sit and go, here, listen to this. Could you imagine the horns and all of a sudden the strings come in? No. That was what we could do. And that, Jeremy, we could sit here and you guys can imagine that because that's our world.
Yeah.
But you cannot sell that anymore, an idea. It has to be that idea. And you have to spend a lot of time learning the instruments that you're using, MIDI-wise, learning the acoustic value of those instruments. Go on YouTube. You want to do a cello? Don't just put the cello thing on and play it like a piano.
Right.
Put the cello thing on, and before you hit a note, go to YouTube and listen to Yo-Yo Ma.
Yeah.
And then come back and play cello.
Or even better, take a couple of cello lessons.
Ooh.
Even you know what? That's even that would be incredible. I mean, I would wish I could take lessons on every single instrument, but you get the right idea. But that's true. If you or get with a cello player, and just ask some questions and get to how they emulate how they play it, what the bowing techniques are, and try to emulate that on your MIDI just as an exercise. Do it like a little, put in Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star and make it sound nice. I mean,
send it to a cellist and see what they say about it.
I annoy my cello playing friends and my violin playing friends. As much string music as I've written, even to this day, even as recently as last week, I was actually emailing a cellist going, does this look like it's okay?
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's one of the biggest
cool.
fears that I have come across, and just even in my own work, we don't know everything about every single instrument. I mean, we know the ranges of them, but if you give a bassoon player an impractical part to play, you're not going to get. You're going to get a phone call. You're going to go, look, I cannot do this. It's impossible for me to do. I would need another 3 fingers to do this. And not being a bassoon player, you don't know that.
Why would you know that?
You don't.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit. It happens every once in a while that you're like, that's this great idea because MIDI. Oh, I could do bassoon.
You can do everything. Yeah.
Great. Ask him to do that, and he'll throw something at you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully not his oboe.
Yeah, hopefully not. And he would much rather get the email from you asking, "Is this doable?" And he can say, "No, not so much." He'd much rather get that email or that contact than have to come around and see it in his part, in his or her part, and then say, "You know what? This isn't going to work."
But the good thing about that is that you add that to your library of your brain, and you know that, oh, if I'm going to write for that instrument again, I know I can't do this.
Yeah.
So you learn what not to do before you learn what to do.
Right.
Absolutely. Process of elimination.
Exactly.
I turn to, when it comes to learning things, like, for example, the Pro Tools setup and everything, I should be more proactive because I don't learn about things until they come to a problem that I have to fix. So maybe this is one place where you can actually be a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for?
Proactive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, thanks again, Craig. This has been fantastic. It really exceeded my expectations. And we got to hear a lot of great music and a lot of great advice.
I appreciate you
Indeed,
asking me to be
it's
here.
been great.
Yep.
So let's get out of here with one more of your original compositions, shall we?
Absolutely. So I'm going to play something now. This is from one of the first independent films I did in 2008. It never saw the light of day. The film was never released. In fact, the film is sitting in my garage. I inherited all the tapes. And when I say tapes, they were on Sony tapes. That's how old the film is. So it's been digitized, it's been edited, we had some workshops on it, it just never got picked up, it never finished. But it's a very cool piece, it's called Will to Power. It was written by David Roundtree, acted with David, and did a great job. The piece that you're going to hear is a montage of the situation that led up to the end of the movie. So it it revisits a whole lot of things throughout the film. And it's kind of a fast montage visually. So I wanted the music to run with that too. So I actually did it in a different meter. to get it. And it's got some choir, some bells. It's got some interesting dissonance in there. So enjoy, have fun, play it.
Well, I'm just curious, what meter did you use?
5/4.
5/4. So it's almost like it sounds like it's sped up because there's missing things.
Yeah.
It's missing beats.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Kind of. Yeah.
That's the crux of it.
Well, let's hear that. And
Yep.
thanks again to you, Craig Brandwein, for being here, and thanks again for listening, guys. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.